Hello everyone, welcome to our Autumn 2023 Hoop Club box. So this has been a really popular one, so I'm excited to show you how to stitch this. We're very lucky that Carol from Max Made Me, I think her business is now called Max Made Me, rather than Max Made Me Do It. I kept getting that wrong. She agreed to work with us on this, bringing this cheetah design to life. So this is one of Carol's illustrations and we've made it into an embroidery project. So there is a lot of work that goes into this. So there's a lot of stitching on the flower crown, which is obviously the main bit of the project, with a number of different stitches. And then the gold flecks that we're going to put all over the cheetah's skin and face here, just to make it look amazing. So we're going to go through it all step by step. So if this is your first Hoop Club box, then welcome and thanks for joining. It's great to have you here. Join the Facebook group, just a great way to stay updated about the project and see everyone else's progress and get any quick answers to any questions. Everything that you need to know is also in your instructions, your little magazine, and a little interview with Carol as well in there, so you can find out all about her. But we're going to go through everything step by step, and if there is anything that you are unsure about or need extra help on, then the best place to get help is on the Facebook group, and I will jump in as quickly as I can on the Facebook group, but there are other people who jump in amazingly quickly as well, which is brilliant. So yep, looking forward to this one, so let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to do is get our fabric in our hoop. So you need to unscrew the hoop and take the hoops apart. Put the smaller hoop on a flat surface, table ideally. Then this design is actually really easy to get in position because you have this kind of bottom edge curve of the cheetah that you want to get just aligned with the bottom edge curve of the hoop. So I'm going to bring it down a bit. So you see how there I've got that pretty much aligned. I'm going to tug it a little bit. So then once you've got it in roughly where you want it, start to tighten the screw, but also do little gentle tugs around the side just to get it really lovely and tight. But you don't want to tug too hard because you don't want to distort the pattern. So it really is just a gentle, slow process of tightening the screw, which can sometimes be a bit hard, and pulling it tight. And you want to end up with a really tight as a drum piece of fabric. So it's going to make it really lovely and easy to work on. Now you might end up retightening it as you go along. You might have to do that, so just be aware. You want your fabric to be really tight, and it might take a few retightenings as you're working on it. I've got a bit of fluff on mine. So that's getting the hoop in that's getting the fabric in the hoop. So your little extra gift in a box this month are these hoop huggers, and I haven't shown you how to use them in the magazine, so here we go. These are designed to keep your fabric away from the back of your hoop so that you don't, sometimes, because you've got all this fabric here, I can't tell you the amount of times I have stitched that bit of fabric to the back of my hoop. Really unhelpful. So these little hoop huggers are designed to stop you from doing that. So you fold your fabric round, and then they're designed to just sit on your hoop like that and just be like a little hand holding your fabric away from the area that you're working on. So you can move them around as you work, but that's your little extra gift and is a really useful little tool in your embroidery sewing box. So as you'll see in the instructions, we've given you a diagram to show you where each stitch goes and what stitch each section is. and then individual instructions for each of those stitches. But quite often it is easier to show you rather than write it out. So that is what this is for. We are going to show you step by step every stitch, and we're going to start with the satin stitch, which is these red flowers here and pink flowers here. So I'm going to show you how we stitch those flowers and just give you any little tips and tricks for those flowers. So I'm going to start with the red, and the first thing to do is learn how to split your thread. Now, there is a key to pulling thread from a skein, and one of the loose ends will mean that you can pull out the thread really nicely. The other one will make the skein really tangled, so you just have to give it a little tug and work out which one it is. So I'm going to cut a length of thread about 50 centimeters long. Now, all of the stitches that we're going to be doing require different amounts of thread. Each strand of embroidery thread is made up of 6 smaller strands. So we need to split our thread for each of the different stitches. So for this satin stitch, we need 3 strands. So you can see there, I'm pulling apart the 3 strands, and I'm just going to slowly split the length of thread. And if you go slowly, it shouldn't get too tangled. There we go. And then I am going to thread my needle with those 3 strands. So I'm going to make sure they're all lined up. I'm going to wet that with a bit of a lick, which is gross, but there's no other way of doing it. So leave about 10 centimeters at the top of your thread. Don't double knot it, don't bring it right down and knot both ends of the thread, because then you'll be using 6 strands because it's double. So just tie, I like to tie a double knot at the end and get them in the same place. There we go, it's 2 together. So I've tied my knot, and then we're going to start work on the flowers. So I'm going to start on one of these bigger panels, but basically the idea is that we are filling this panel with stitches that point towards the center of the flower. So for the center of the flower on this one, it's here, for the pink it's here, the red it's here, so that you want your stitches to all point towards the flower. And satin stitch is just made up of lots of horizontal stitches, or vertical, depending on the kind of nature of your shape that you're filling, lying next to each other. And you put so many close together that they form this satin kind of textured feel, because the thread is all becomes kind of one element. But to start with, what we're going to do is just spread the stitches out. I find it's then less overwhelming to fill this whole shape. So I'm just kind of angling the stitches so that they will all roughly point towards this center piece. And I'll show you how you do the center piece. So I'm going up and then back down, and just angling. I think it's easier to get the kind of angling right if you do less stitches to start with, and you kind of spread them out across the whole piece to start with. So this is what my first run looks like, and then what I'm going to do now is just go back over. Oh, I'm actually just going to do a little one here at the end because it's a bit of a shorter shape. but then I'm going to go back and I'm going to go in the middle of all of these stitches that I've done. So you've got a guide as to where your stitches are going to sit. And as we do this, we're just gradually filling in the shape until there are no gaps. So I've come all the way back, and that's what mine's looking like now. So it's getting pretty full with just 2 goes. I'm running out of threads. I'm now going to knot my thread, and I'll show you how I do that. So I'm going to tie a knot as close to the fabric as I can. I'm going to push it down with my finger and then pull it and kind of hold it there with my nail. So I'm going to do it 2 just to be sure. So as close as you can, and then hold it with your nail and pull. And then I'm going to trim all the little bits that could get pulled back through as I'm stitching. So trying to keep it as neat as possible on the back so that we don't pull through any extra thread. And now I'm going to rethread my needle, and I'm going to go back over the same way I did to start with, but I'm just going back in between any of the gaps and filling in that shape. So I have come back across just like you see it. You probably could leave it there. That is looking thick and satiny enough for me. But if you want to make it even more kind of plush and raised, then you could go back and do another row of stitches to fill in any little gaps. But can you see all of the stitches are kind of pointing towards this centre bit, which is the important thing. And I'm going to show you in the next video how we finish off then all of the red bits of this flower, and then how we add some colour, some different colour, just to give it a little bit of texture and make it look like a flower. So I'm going to leave you there because I've run out of time to film, but that is enough to keep you going.